Hey, welcome back to FHN Northwest. We are here in the bait lab for this week's how-to. Want to remind everybody that our how-tos, weekly how-tos, are brought to you by Max Lure. Check out everything Max Lure has going on at maxlure.com. And with that, something a little different this week. We get a lot of messages and inquiries about certain types of knots that we like to use when we're fishing. One of the more common questions is, how do you secure your top shot of monofilament to your braid when you're float fishing? Now, for some, you like to run your braid right down to, say, your weight that goes then to your terminal end via your leader. You'll run your float sliding up and down your braid, and there's nothing wrong with that. I often choose, more times than not, pretty much all types of float fishing I do, whether it's vertical presentation or bobber dogging, float drifting, what have you. I will run my float on an actual top shot of monofilament. So that connection point where you secure your braid to your monofilament is kind of crucial, because for some, not utilizing the proper knot can make for a stress point or an easy break point. So there are several different knots out there to utilize. This is one that I kind of came up with several years ago, just trying different things and strength testing multiple types of knot that I would tie. I can't really find this in a book anywhere. It's just something I started doing, and I like the results. To date, I have yet to ever lose a fish because my knot failed where I secure my monofilament top shot to my braid. So I'm going to show you that one right now. Hey guys, thanks for checking out today's video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, lower right hand corner. Also, leave us a comment in the comment section. We'll answer all comments and questions, comments, concerns, whatever you have. Subscribe now. You'll never miss a single episode here at Fish Hunt Northwest. So I got a 40-pound braid on my steelhead rod. It is steelhead season. So we're basically going to walk through securing the top shot to the braid. And then I'm going to go ahead and just rig up all this gear we see on the table here in front of me. It's basically going to be a vertical float setup where it's permissible this year to run a double rig, because at times you'll want to run a double rig. We're going to take and put on this 1/8 ounce jig. We got a 1/2 ounce float. We're going to drop a dropper soft plastic bead underneath this jig. And folks often ask, how do you secure all that together? What knots are you using for your inline weight? What knot do you use to secure your jig to your leader? And of course, what and how do you put a dropper? A lot of folks want to know, how do we put a dropper under a jig using a bead as a secondary attractant? So first things first, let's do the braid to monofilament first. So I basically take my braid, okay, and securing braid to mono, single strand to single strand, is going to be a failure. If nothing else, some of the knots that you use to secure that will simply pull away and pull out and come apart. So the first thing I do is I double up my braid, okay? And the working end of this is going to be the loop end, which is a little different from a lot of knots that you tie. Now I'm going to take this 15-pound mono, and I'm just simply laying it over the top of each other. And this is a series of wraps. It's pretty simple, really. You take your double end of your braid, and we are going to go over and under 4 times, making 4 small loops. So there's under and over is 1, under and over is 2, and you try to keep them uniform. Under and over is 3, then under and over is 4. Now we're simply going to take that double end, come up through the bottom like here, and don't just pull that tight now. You want to elongate this knot out. You want to get those loops all laid out flat, nice and symmetrical, okay? So as you see, this tail end doesn't have a whole lot left on there. I have those 4 loops light in there. Very uniformity. Now I'm going to turn this around because I'm right-handed, and I'm taking my monofilament and I'm going to do the same exact thing. I'm going to go 4 loops. We're going under and over, under and over. Second time, under and over 3, stacking the loops, under and over 4. Okay? Make sure both of your braid ends are out of the way. Bring that under through the bottom. Again, elongate it out. Make sure all those lay nice and flat. Now when you go to pull this together, don't try to hold on to both pieces of this braid and pull this. It doesn't like to slide very easily. So I simply grab the leader end and I drop the tail end, and first thing I do is I slide that down almost all the way. Then I'll come back and grab this tail end and I will pull on that one. And then I come back to the main and then back to the tail end, okay? And once those are bumped up against each other and we're almost bumped up nice and tight right at that knot, now you can grab the main line of that braid and the tail in your main leader end or your top shot end, and you pull those tight. Now, just to make sure, you want to secure all 6 points. We're going to take our plier and we're going to grab this, and so it doesn't slip. Again, pulling against the braid only. Okay, so I put a little twist on there and come back, grab the tail of monofilament and pull that one. Now, once I get all this stuff cut off of here, you're going to see this is nice and clean. So we're going to remove that monofilament tail. Okay, that one's out of the way. We are going to remove this extra piece of braid, that long tail off of there. And you don't have to worry about cutting these short right up to the knot. This knot is not going to pull out. It's not going to slip on itself. So you can cut these tag ends nice and tight, because if you leave them too long, they get frayed, and then it begins to have a little tougher time getting through your guides, okay? Once that's all trimmed, it's a fairly compressed knot. And for me, that knot is extremely strong. I've had very little to no issues with that knot over, I don't know, the past 8 or 10 years. So pretty simple clinch knot, cinch knot, whatever you want to call it. Now I'm going to just pick this up and collect all this extra line real quick, just so we can get to the end and finish tying our rig on. So we got our top shot on, okay? And we go from 40-pound braid to 15-pound top shot. And this is what our float is going to run on. This is going to be where my fixed float is affixed to, or I can rig it as a slider. But typically when I'm fishing jigs, I like to fix it at a certain depth and leave it there so it's not sliding up and down when I'm presenting that jig in the water. I'm going to show you how to do that with a double bobber stop here coming up. So speaking of which, first thing that goes on, of course, is our bobber stop. And I take my Bomac rubber egg stop and I'm just going to put that through the loop and slide that onto the top shot, okay? And we're going to run that up a little ways. Now, especially when I'm fishing vertical presentation, I like to put something on top of my float so I know when it maxes out. I always will put some type of a corky or a cheater or a fish pill or something of opposing color, contrasting color out in front of that float. Put that down there so you can see it. So I like to have something in contrast that you can definitely see what's going on, okay? So we're going to slide this up. We're going to slide the float on here. This is a 1/2 ounce float. I'm going to rig it for vertical presentation, and I'm going to fish an 1/8 ounce jig with that and a dropper bead. I have a 1/4 ounce inline sinker that we'll be securing onto here. So next thing that goes on is this small 6mm bead underneath my float that stops against the swivel and or my secondary bobber stop. Okay, I like to put one down here underneath. This one here goes on as a means of two things. Let me pop that on there. And here's the deal. So I put that secondary one down below. When I tie my weight on, this can sit right down at the bottom. And if I'm fishing a sliding float, it'll go up and down and travel between the two stops as deep as I allow it to based on that distance. If I break off my leader or break off my weight or something, I'm not going to lose my float because this secondary bobber stop will allow everything to stay above it. And so I may end up losing the weight, I may end up losing the jig. That's okay. At least I'm not losing everything that I put on there simply by putting that secondary little bobber stop on there. The other thing it does, and it'll make more sense once I have all the weight and everything on, if I want to fix this float to a certain position on the line, I can basically pinch it in between those two bobber stops and those beads, and that is not going anywhere. Okay, that is how I rigged that to fix it. Now, if I want to fish a sliding float, I simply drop that lower one back down right on top of the weight. Now that float has the ability to travel. Okay, and I'll show you that again here in a little bit. Anyway, got the float on, got my indicator on, got my bead, got my second stop. Now we're going to simply tie on our quarter ounce weight. And basically this is, I've always used this knot. For me, it's a strong knot. It's very simple. Very similar, same to the joining the two lines together, the monofilament and the braid, because now all I'm doing is making 4 loops. I passed it through the eye of the swivel twice, and now I'm making 4 loops, okay? Same basic principle. I use this knot a lot, and you're gonna see I pretty much use it throughout most of this rigging. We use it in our top shot, tying it together. We're using it now to secure our weight to our top shot. Same exact knot, 4 loops, come up through the bottom. Now I'm going to push this down on top of here, and that's where that stops now. So again, if I wanted to rig this and I'm fishing a jig vertically and I set that top stop right there, this allows my float to travel. Okay, now I have adjustability and travel. If I want to make that a fixed float, I now slide that lower stop up there. Now this float is sitting there at any depth that I want to set it. We're going to put a leader underneath that weight, which is going to give it more depth, and then we're going to also put on that soft bead. Okay, so we'll slide this back down. Now we're going to tie in our jig.